Capital Combat Parley, brought to you by Obscura Creative. We're here with Mike Carrier. Mike Carrier, you've been medaling on the grappling scene. You're in every competition we could see. Tell us how you're doing and tell us about grappling.
Well, especially with the changes in the laws that are put forth back on Canada, it's a huge issue for a lot of athletes that are trying to develop. So I was put in like this existential crisis, like I want to be an athlete, but I can't compete in my country. So I made the decision, okay, I have to go to the US. I have to go to the native reserves where they're holding those tournaments because these are the only opportunities I have. But on top of that, you gotta pay money, and I'm a student, I'm an athlete. I try not to work because I'm a student and I'm an athlete. So I needed sponsorship. So my goal for the summer was to get the sponsorship in order to become the athlete. So I managed to get sponsorship from Beer Grain Supply Co. Shout out to them. They just opened up a new shop on Bank Street. Great selection, great variety. And then Crawford and Company here, they were the ones that I was working for over the summer, and I guess I did a good enough job that they're like, okay, this guy might be a good athlete. So they gave me the financial opportunities to be able to go out and show that, you know, I'm serious about this. I want to be an athlete. I want to be a world black belt champion one day. Being a blue belt world champion, that's cool. That's a stepping stone to me. That's part one. The end goal is being the Abu Dhabi champion, being the black belt world champion, being the ADCC world champion. Like, these are the goals. This is what I'm working for.
Man, I shook your hand earlier on, and I thought I was going to get arm dragged and thrown across the room, man. You got crazy,
I was hoping.
Crazy grip. You wrestled in university, yes?
Yeah.
Tell us about your previous grappling style, which is wrestling.
Wrestling. Wrestling was my passion. I loved it. It was an opportunity for me to go out and not hurt people when I wanted to. Safe environment, especially when you're going through puberty. You don't know what's going on. You're angry all the time. Wrestling was great. Great family, and offered me opportunity for university, so I hopped on that. So being at Regina in my first year, I had a scholarship out there. It was awesome because we went to the States a lot. So we were wrestling the collegiate style. It's really similar to grappling. Like the best way, that's the most similar to grappling, because instead of trying to just pin and expose the shoulders, you actually have to hold them for 3 seconds in like jiujitsu and stuff like that. There's certain techniques that you can't do, there's certain positions you can't hold, but the whole aggression, the athleticism behind it was great. It was really eye-opening to see that, like, no wonder Americans are the best in the world.
What division of?
So I did, there's NCAA Division II, not Div 1. Like, oh man, that would have been scary. Just Div 2. And then there's another one, I can't remember what it's called, but it's on par with NCAA Division II. But North and South Dakota, Ohio, Iowa.
Those are the big wrestling states in the U.S. The Midwest produces, you know, Minnesota, the Dakotas.
Yes, and especially when you have people like Dan Gable, who are like, who's a coach, is more more medaled as a coach than as an actual athlete. Like, it's pretty insane. So like, you know, when you're in the middle of the farm and all you could do is suplex bales of hay all day, eventually you'll get strong enough to beat up everybody. But it was a great experience. I loved it. And then after that, after figuring out that Regina wasn't really the place for me, it was far away from home. I was my first year at university, did a lot of dumb stuff, you know. I decided to come back home, try to re-figure out what I want to do, and then I always wanted to go to Brock, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the push for it. I went and competed with the team for 2 years. I didn't.
What weight division?
It varied. I think back then I was 190. Okay. So it would have been the 87 kilo category, something like that. So there, we just kind of competed all throughout Ontario and stuff. I didn't compete on the actual varsity team. I just competed with the club. I had taken time off. But I was still training regularly. And then eventually I had a hip injury that forced me to have to stop. The tendons in my hip were tearing, the muscle was all torn up. Wow. And it was honestly just the result of wrestling for years and not properly taking care of my body and not knowing that I need to stretch these things, I need to strengthen these things.
Well, I mean, it's good you learned that at a young age, because most people learn that later.
Oh,
when it's too late, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And well, I learned when it was like, I was young, but like it was kind of too late. And then I just found out that after retiring, I got too bored. So I'm like, let's do jiu-jitsu.
How has your wrestling enhanced your jiu-jitsu experience? Has it enhanced it?
Oh, well, yeah. So everybody I go against, they're like, Mike, your base is amazing. We can't get you off balance. And that's primarily because of wrestling. You're going against a guy who's trying to get your feet off the floor. So that really helped a lot. Positioning in general, pressuring, overall athleticism, those are kind of things that I found help transition over to wrestling. But then again, sometimes some of the things I found with wrestling that were issues were my overall aggression. So in jiu-jitsu, you can't always be going forward. You can't always be doing certain things. You'll make a mistake or you get caught. So that was a hard thing to deal with. That and going on my back. In wrestling, I'm so used to not being on my back that it was a nightmare at first. But
is it still awkward for you, or?
Sort of, but like again, it's a part of my game that needs to be developed, and it's something that I know I need to be developing, and I'm focusing on that right now. I'm great on the top. Now it's time to be great on the bottom.
What does it mean to want to go pro as a Canadian in a sport that is banned in your own province right now? And how do you make money as a Canadian doing that? Is it an international stage? Like, where do you go from here?
See, that's a good question. I'm trying to figure that out myself, but a guy I train with, he goes to Hong Kong a lot and competes a lot in Asia. He's telling me that the scene in Asia for martial arts is amazing. You're treated like an athlete.
Garmamie tells me that all the time, by the way. He really does, yeah.
It's an amazing experience from what he says, and just sponsorship opportunities. Like you win a tournament, you get a $70, $80 gi just for winning the tournament.
Sure.
So like the treatment that they get there and the opportunities that they present. And apparently he was saying as well that they love when foreigners come over and fight because it's an opportunity for them to show off their technique and pit themselves.
Are you going to Asia? Is this on the table?
It's a possibility, man. I still got a year like left of school, so.
What are you studying?
Environmental studies. Yeah.
Nerd.
Yeah, see?
Sorry.
Nerd, superheroes, environmental
Absolutely,
studies,
yeah.
glasses.
Nothing wrong with environmental studies.
Yeah, so no, I'm loving it. It was just, I applied to Carleton. They said, this is a program that we can offer you, so I got into it. The key thing that I found about it was from previous environmental sciences, they were all about how we're screwed. Like everything's doom and gloom,
Sure.
everything's going to hell. This and that is what's wrong, and it made me think like, okay, if we're all like this, what's the point of trying? Why am I in this class? What am I learning here? And like we're all going to die. I'm going to go home, drink a couple of beers, and try to forget this.
That's what we do, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
So then, like transitioning to Carleton, they're more like, okay, so these are the issues, yes, but these are the solutions that we think can help. These are the things that other people are doing. These are the things that we think are going well, and these are past examples that show are going well. So it's really exciting just to see that, like, yeah, it's like we're not in a good place right now, but there's a lot of hope for the future.
He's an optimist.
Oh, I have to be, because if I'm a pessimist, I wouldn't be doing jiu-jitsu right
Speaking of
now.
optimism, I mean, you're going to have no shortage of work either. I mean, in a field like that.
Oh, yeah.
The future is dim, therefore it's very bright for you. Now, before we leave you, tell us where you are competing next.
So my next tournament is the MTL Invitational. It's November 25th in Oka, Quebec. I competed in the MTL Invitational, the previous one. That was a super fight format. This one's going to be a gi and no gi tournament. So I'm hoping to medal there again. Try to get my name out there, and win some more gold for my room.
Well, what do you prefer, no gi or gi?
I used to be strictly a gi guy because I didn't know. And then I started doing gi. I'm like, hey, this is a lot easier. Wrestling, it makes sense, all that. But right now, I'm really loving the no gi, but it's only the season right now. As soon as the New Year's hits, that's when I'm getting ready for the gi season. So right now, it's MTL Invitational. Then the IBJJF No-Gi Worlds, December 15th and 16th in Anaheim. And then after that, I start my gi season.
What aspect of your game are you focusing on the most? Beyond just, being in great shape and continuously training, what aspect of your routine are you refining in?
Well, I found with my trip to the Pan Ams in New York, great place also. Harlem's awesome. Had a great time. I found that my mental game wasn't necessarily on point. There was just a lot going on. It was a new situation. I was like in a new city. For some reason, I just wasn't all there, and that I found that kind of had an effect on my competing.
How did you know you weren't all there? What triggered it, or what gave it away?
So,
were you nervous? Were you?
No, it's not. It's not nervous. It's that feeling of focus.
A lack thereof focus?
Yeah, yeah. It's like you enter this almost like trance where you're anxious but calm at the same time. You're focused on the job at hand. Everything else disappears. All that you can see and hear is either your coach and the athlete in front of you in the mat. That's like my prime. Like that's where I am kicking butt. I'm doing flying arm bars. I'm souping everybody. Like I'm all sorts of fire. What I felt this time was very much of doubt in my own technique, doubt in my own skill, doubt in the fact that it wasn't right. It didn't feel right. And it's not necessarily anything was different. It's just trying to figure out what that trigger was. So right now I'm actually with a sports psych coach.
Good for you, for a sports psychologist?
Yeah, yeah.
Very good.
So super helpful. What we've been working on is visualization techniques. He told me that the more vivid the exercise is, the more potent the results are. So that includes all the senses, so feel, sight, smell, and being sure that whenever you're doing it, it's perfect. Whenever you're visualizing it, it's perfect every single time. And he was key on that. So that's really interesting to me. And like I've always tried visualization, but I never took it to that extreme of like include all the senses, make it as real and vivid as possible. Trick your brain into think you actually just competed. Mind over matter, like the brain's pretty crazy strong. Other than that, efficiency of technique. I found that being especially young in jiu-jitsu and having my aggressive wrestling background, I'm very explosive. I'm very like, I can pick you up and throw you. I can move you around. I'm faster than you, I have more dexterity. But when you get to the Pan Ams and the Worlds, it's not your everyday people. These are guys that are here to win. They're here to compete. So I found that because my techniques weren't necessarily as efficient, it was draining of energy, and it didn't look good, it didn't feel good, it wasn't, so just being able to make my techniques more efficient, less energy draining, things that are higher percentage, and being able to adapt between when I need to be explosive and when I need to just kind of chill it. And then I guess the last thing is just overall conditioning. Like I thought I was tough, but like sometimes I guess you can get like not as tough. So again, I really neglected my strength and conditioning in the past. And that's led to other issues with hips, other shoulder joints, all sorts of stuff. So now to combat that, a new sponsor actually, Strength Nation, ran by Joy Morency. He's coaching me. He's my new strength and conditioning coach. We've started as soon as I got back from Pan Ams, and everything seems to be going really well. I'm feeling a lot more confident in my training, feeling a lot more stronger, faster, just everything's feeling way better now. So I'm very excited for the next couple months.
You're a young guy, but you seem to have a very mature fight mind, and I feel like you're doing all the right things. I think the future is very bright for you. Thank you for coming to talk to us.
No
We
problem.
really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys.